Good morning, friends. I was thinking recently about a time several years ago when I was running a family process group. And one of the complicated things in families is everybody has their own personalities and energies and willingness to talk and being able to communicate. And I was working with this particular family, and oftentimes in families, there's at least one person who tends to speak less. Maybe you are that person. Maybe you are related to that person. I definitely have been that person. And one of the things that I have learned about that from my own journey, but also from observing other people, is there's something that I like to call a ramp up. That the more introverted, quiet, timid, shy, anxious, whatever word you want to use, have in being able to communicate. For me, what that has been in the past is if I'm trying to ramp up and get up to the courage to say something, anytime someone talks, the ramp starts over, which is absolutely not fair to people around me, because sometimes, well, it used to be like hours, which was my wonderful husband. He was patient in the beginning. He's still patient, but he doesn't have to be as patient as he did have to be in the beginning. But being aware that sometimes when, depending on birth order or other factors, people talking and feeling like what they have to say matters is in question. So how we communicate what other people want to say is important to us, is how we communicate with them. So for example, if someone asks me what I think or what I need, and then they talk over me, or they change the subject, or they don't wait for me to think about it, or they're not available when I've figured it out, I might get the message that that's not actually that important. And so being able to recognize what our part is in those conversations. How able are we to sit in silence and wait until that ramp is complete, until those things are done? And then how able or willing are we to respond to what is said? Now, if you are a person who takes a long time to speak up about what you need or what you feel, and then immediately it's shut down or dismissed or, neglected or change the subject, it really makes it hard to want to do that again, because you're beginning to establish a pattern that that person doesn't actually care what I think. They don't care what I feel. It doesn't matter to them. And so sometimes we have to be able to recognize the part we're playing in the quiet people's communication or not. Now, reality is it's every person's job to validate their own voice and figure out how to do that, and we'll talk about that later. But also, if every time I open my mouth someone interrupts me, I'm probably going to stop talking. If every time I speak up my needs, it's ignored or neglected, I'm probably going to stop speaking up. I remember there was this time I'm not super picky about food, but when I was in my early 20s, my friends and I, we had this habit where we would go to some activity and then we'd go out to eat afterwards. And every time, whether it was Monday or Wednesday or Friday or whichever day we were hanging out, we would have a conversation of like, well, where are we going to go eat? And there was a particular restaurant, and I won't name the name because I don't even know if it's still in business, but I'm not throwing shade today, that I was not interested in eating at. And so everybody was talking, and I usually am a go with the flow. I'll go wherever we want. On this occasion, I said, they mentioned the name of that restaurant. I said, I will go anywhere, but I don't want to eat at that restaurant. And they kept talking and they kept talking, and they decided to go to that restaurant. And because I was with one of my sisters and she wanted to go, I drove her, and I was there, but I didn't order any food. And my friends misunderstood and were like, oh, we'll buy you the food because it must be because you don't have the money to pay for it. But reality is I said I didn't want it, and I wasn't going to eat food that made me sick or that I was not interested in. And especially when I had tried to express my voice and they didn't listen. And so, but you know what? We never went to that restaurant again. They understood eventually that that was a thing that was important to me. And so being aware that sometimes we invite or disinvite people to tell us things based on how we respond. So if I say something to someone and say, hey, that upset me, and they say, you were just having a bad day, or you're just too sensitive, or you're just da-da-da, that's not going to happen again very often. I remember when my kid was little, and she doesn't really do it anymore, but she used to say, before she'd say anything, she'd say, can I tell you something? Or can I ask you something? And my answer was always. Every single time. Always. And so that she knew whatever she was going to say, whatever she wanted to tell me, whatever she wanted to ask, she was able to. And one time, just after we moved into this house, I had taken the week off to unpack everything and put everything away. And I was taking a break, and I'm sure I was scrolling on my phone because it's a bad habit. And she said something, and I didn't hear her. And she said, Mommy! And I was like, what? She said, you said that what I have to say is important, and you're not acting like it right now. So I said, thanks for letting me know. Can you try again? Give me another chance. And she told me, and we continued our day, and it was no big deal. But I love the fact that she knows she can tell me, and I want to know. Even if it seems like something insignificant, I want to know. Because the thing is, if we don't want to hear the insignificant things, they won't know that we want to hear the big stuff. So everything is big to kids. And then we carry that into our adulthood. Oh, people don't care what I want to say. They're too busy. They're too distracted. My ideas are stupid. Blah, 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 blah. And suddenly you've got people who have a really hard time speaking up. So pay attention. One, if you're one of those people that takes a minute to get brave and say what you need to say, maybe write about it, journal about it, validate your own feelings about it, speak up, and create it and invite a safe person into that space to come back to it. And if you don't have safe people yet, we can work on building that together. But we have to be able to begin to know what it is and notice it's happening. My ramp up time for most things is much shorter than it was 15 years ago. But it took a lot of practice. So pay attention. Notice if you're an interrupter, or if you cut people off, if you answer questions for them. You may never get to know who they actually are. Have a good week.